echo of childhood fights always seemed loudest in hospital corridors. Sterile tile, two white lights, a faint hum of old pipes. These places make family secrets matter-of-fact, bald in their tiredness. The air in Cedar Valley General was thick with disinfectant and unsaid things when I walked in that night, 6 years ago. Camera bag hanging off my shoulder, hands jammed in the pockets of my threadbare coat. I found my sister Andrea outside room 215, pacing. Arms crossed so tightly, her knuckles were white. Across from her, Mom leaned against the wall, her purse on the floor, and her eyebrows drawn in a way I remembered from every failed report card. Uncle Vince was there too, tapping his foot, already looking annoyed, his red Dodgers windbreaker crumpled like a discarded flag. Before I could ask for news, Andrea turned sharp on her heel and caught sight of me. "There she is," she announced, as if I'd finally shown for a shift no one wanted. The artisan. Her tone was a brittle thing, meant to cut me down before I could speak. Mom sighed. "Lena, why now? Couldn't you—" I put my hands up. "My flight from Oakland was late. I came straight here." Vince snorted. "Bet you shot the whole trip on that little camera too. Maybe make another mood piece nobody'll want to watch." This right here was the battleground. I'd felt it in every group text and family dinner since I announced at 19 I was leaving for Los Angeles to make films. And not the kind people tune into for car chases and superhero suits. I wanted stories that felt real. The fact that I believed they could matter, could be worth something, made for a running punchline. Andrea ignored him. "You should talk to Dad. He's awake." Mom touched her elbow, a silent rebuke. I looked through the glass at my father. Even with the tubes in his nose, he managed to look unimpressed. My camera bag felt heavier. Vince shook his head. "While you're in there, maybe ask if he wants to hear about your new script. A hospital drama. You can cast him." A nurse stepped past us, the moment stretching. Finally, I said, "I'm going in." Their laughter crackled behind me as I pushed open the heavy door and faced the man who taught me to ride a bark by holding the back seat, then letting go before I was ready. He watched me, chest rising unevenly. "Didn't expect you," he managed. I sat. "Course you did. How are you feeling?" He controlled a flinch, face drawn. "Like hell." The monitor beeped steadily, my cheap shoes scuffing the floor. I noticed the notepad by his tray, the crossword half finished. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but we both knew this was groundwork. I was the youngest. They all said I had my head in the clouds and nowhere else. It was between coughs that he asked, "You working now, Lena?" I nodded, but my jaw ached. Still shooting. "I'm editing a film for a doc festival about immigrant cooks." He hummed, neither impressed nor dismissive. My family had always operated this way. Hard hands, harder expectations. There were acceptable ambitions, engineering, business, accounting. Not storytelling. Not art with no clear financial return. He said quietly, "Your uncle thinks you'll move back when the money runs out." The old ache returned, like a tooth broken years before. I found my voice. Maybe, maybe not. If I succeed, will it matter to anyone? He paused, his eyes softening in a way I hadn't seen in years. It might. After a minute, he looked away, embarrassed or just tired. "Don't get lost out there." I promised I wouldn't. That was the last conversation we had face to face. 3 weeks later, he was gone, cancer swallowing what little fight his body held. At the funeral, I stood among the lilies and the loaves of store-bought bread and listened as my family murmured about my projects. Vince patted my head when he thought I couldn't hear. Andrea played hostess, sharp-tongued and brisk. Mom watched me quietly, neither criticizing nor comforting. The rest of the hometown crowd, the neighbors and cousins and old teachers' aides, nodded in the way of people who mean to be kind, but hope you'll outgrow your foolishness by 30. When I went back to Los Angeles, grief lodged in my skin like glass. Apartment rent overdue. Half a film finished. My regular cafe job lost to cutbacks. My father's voice in my ear. Don't get lost out there. I did. For a while, I got so lost I couldn't see daylight for months. There's a turning point in every story, but real life doesn't give you clear acts. For me, it wasn't a montage of sudden luck or a magical mentor appearing with offers of funding. It was sitting in my tiny Koreatown studio, editing footage I'd shot 4 years ago in a Chinatown basement kitchen, sweat stinging my eyes while I spliced together minutes of a 50-year-old baker kneading dough at 2 a.m. I wanted people to see the grace in small labor, the poetry of survival. None of my early films got more than a few hundred views, most of them thanks to friends and an algorithm that mistook my work for something trendier. I worked as a barista, then a substitute teacher, spent whole nights reading rejection emails from festivals and grants. My bank account hovered just above overdraft. The world did not care, and neither did my family, still sending group texts with pictures of new cars and new babies. But something kept pulling me back to the edit bay. Some late-night clarity. I'm not done yet. If I quit now, I'll become the simplest version of myself, the cautionary tale, the failed artist, the prodigal daughter who comes home with nothing. If I keep going, maybe I just disappear, but at least I'll have tried until the end. So I kept going. It was hard not to internalize the doubt. Every time I called home, Andrea had some new way of asking if I was finished playing make-believe. Netflix is hiring admins now, Mom would offer, hopeful. Vince gave up entirely, sending me job postings for insurance adjusters. But as I filmed, I started meeting others like me. Immigrants, artists, cleaners, dishwashers. People whose voices never filled a movie screen. I spent a hot August picking up audio snippets, cooking lessons, stories about money, loss, and hope in foreign lands. I got permission to shoot inside tiny apartments lit only by the blue glow of old TVs. These weren't the stories my family wanted to see, but they were mine, and I clung to them when my own apartment emptied out. Roommate moving in with a boyfriend, the thrift store lamp flickering one night, gone the next. A producer named Mina found my 12-minute cut online. She met me for cheap tacos one night on Western Avenue. Her hair pulled back in a messy braid, eyes sharp. Documentaries need new blood. What you're showing, nobody's making it like this here. We pitched to 10 more producers. Most said no, some said maybe, and then, dizzyingly, one said yes. It wasn't a blockbuster, not even close. We got a tiny grant. We signed a festival deal. I shot more footage. Chinese grandmothers rolling dumplings, El Salvadorian teens in a borrowed kitchen, a Russian baker pressing rye with practiced hands. I spent days writing grant letters and nights cutting sound and splicing frames until my vision blurred. We made the festival deadline. The little dock called Night Needs opened to a packed small theater on Sunset, all creaking seats and overstuffed popcorn bins. That night, I wore a wrinkled dress I found in a thrift pile and read my father's last text before I entered the theater. Keep working, Lena. One day you'll see. We won the jury prize. It got distribution. A streamer picked it up. It was praised as haunting and messy and true. This film about lonely work, low light, and the sheer will it takes to belong. It didn't make me rich, but it made me real. People wrote about me. It started slowly. Local press, immigrant magazines. A blog post that got shared by someone bigger. Suddenly, my inbox was full of chefs inviting me to shoot their stories. I could pay my rent on time, send money to Mom for the first time in my life. 3 years after that night in the hospital, Andrea sent a message. Saw a thing about you online. Mom won't stop showing people your interview. I stared at the phone for a long time, fingers tingling. A year later, I got a call from Cedar Valley Community Foundation. They wanted to screen my next film, an even harder one, about women janitors working graveyard shifts in the auditorium at my old high school. Your mom says you still have family here. Would you come do a Q&A? Pride and fear sharpened everything. I hesitated, then wrote back, yes. I returned home in early February. Los Angeles was all gleaming dusk and sunshine, but the valley town had that thin gray light that made every brick look tired. I pulled up to Mom's little ranch house in a rented sedan, engine ticking, hands sweating on the wheel. The last time I'd been here, it was to bury my father. The porch creaked just the same. There was a fresh doormat, "Home Sweet Home" in cursive, the kind Andrea would buy as a hint. As soon as I stepped inside, I had a smell memory. Roast chicken, coffee, floor wax. Mom hugged me fast, letting go before I could get used to her touch. "Good flight?" she asked, voice steady. Andrea followed, her arms crossed, but her face was less pinched than I remembered. "We're proud of you," Mom said, so quietly I almost missed it. "Everyone's coming to the auditorium, even Vince." I smiled, a strange lump in my throat. We ate together, old family photos on the fridge. Vince's loud laugh in the den. He had less hair now, wore reading glasses. Andrea told me about her kids, her job at the bank. Before bed, I looked through a box of old family papers, Dad's torn notepad, some yellowed photos, a faded flyer for the raffle he once ran at church. Sitting on the edge of my childhood bed, grief found me, but this time it was soft, not sharp. The night of the screening, the air had that nervous buzz I'd felt once before. Maybe prom, maybe one of my father's town hall speeches. Cedar Valley High was the same beige cinder block box as always, but tonight the parking lot was packed. I saw neighbors, Mrs. Kim, the choir director, old Mr. Odo from across the street. Some waved shyly, others just stared. Vince hummed by the doors, all hearty handshakes, wearing a dusty blazer. My chest pounded as I stood backstage, hearing the noise of arrivals, the scrape of metal chairs. The auditorium lights harsh, the curtains thin. I worried no one would come, but the room filled, row after row. Andrea stood near the back with her husband. I saw my old science teacher, the barista who used to give me extra whipped cream. Even kids from the high school newspaper, clutching borrowed cameras, watching me with wide eyes. The principal still, after all these years, introduced me. Lena Rodriguez.